Welcome to Andy and Ari on 3. We are here in New Orleans, Ari. The fine folks at Xfinity have brought us down. We're in the Athlete's First House, which is actually a compound of houses in this beautiful, old, restored New Orleans mansion. There's actually tandem tubs in the bathroom over there. And I said, if we have time, can we just broadcast the last segment of the show from the tubs?
Is tandem tubs like an old world New Orleans, like...
I don't think so. I think that's a new thing that people want in their houses.
It's a new thing people want now?
I just can't imagine. Like, my wife wouldn't want to talk to me for that long, and especially not in the tub.
So we've bought houses twice in the last 5 years. So we've been to a lot of open houses.
And let me
bought one
clarify for the audience. This is not a giant tub that fits two people. This is two tubs together.
I've never seen a tandem tub scenario. And I feel like the whole point is to be in the tub with your spouse. I don't know.
That seemed to be more practical.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. Because this is the type of house, like just looking around, like the details and the paint. Like I don't know if they propped this place up to look like you would think it would look. But there's no house like this anywhere that's not in New Orleans. Like we are in a New Orleans house.
It's probably haunted too.
Yeah, it's like I can't tell if this is like a $1 million charming, beautiful, like old world, antique-ridden home, or if this is the site of a horror movie that's being filmed. But I think that's the charm.
I think it could be both.
Yeah,
it probably depends on the lighting.
Yeah, it's like beautiful in a I might get stabbed kind of way.
Yeah,
yeah.
So we are here, week of the Super Bowl. We inadvertently stayed in the Chiefs hotel. We didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Did not note to my daughter. I did not see Taylor Swift. I don't think she was hanging out in the Marriott.
Let me ask you. Let's just back this up real quick. Did Mahomes and Kelsey and Chris Jones stay there?
Yes.
See, because
Andy Reid stayed there.
The thing that I don't understand is it was a New Orleans Marriott, nice property.
Yeah,
for where we usually stay. We were usually in the Fairfield. If I were as rich as those people, it's not cutting it for me. I would be the snobbiest human being.
It's about the meeting space, Ari. They got to have meetings.
I know, but I just picturing Travis Kelce sleeping in the room with B- pillows is just insulting. And that's the thing. If you want to,
that's why I don't think Taylor joined him. I'm pretty sure she didn't.
It would be really, really gratifying to know that Taylor Swift crashed in the Marriott New Orleans. That would make me feel.
That would make me feel very special.
I do want to know too, the pillow situation over at wherever the Eagles are staying might give you a inside shot at who might win this football game.
I hadn't thought about that.
Because pillow density and pillow support has become increasingly more important to me as I've aged.
That's true. And some
things you never thought would be important to you.
And you think, Saquon Barkley has to be operating at optimum capacity. Lane Johnson, he's been playing a long time.
There's no freaking way that Saquon Barkley slept with a lumpy pillow the way that I did last night.
Do you think Saquon Barkley brings his own pillow wherever he goes?
I think someone brings Saquon Barkley.
He has a person for that. It's funny because we haven't quite gotten to that point covering college football where we see these folks. They have the NIL deals, but they don't have a person for that. They don't have an assistant. I heard Jameis Winston in an interview the other day talking about his assistant. We're not quite there yet. We did talk to a guy at the Senior Bowl who had an assistant.
I think that he misused what.
Right. I think his agency provided
somebody to help him.
A person to help who also helps other people.
I want somebody following me around, and I'm like, I want egg drop soup. Go get it for me. I want to get to that point.
I think you could get big enough for that.
Yeah.
I think you could.
Just most random shit that you would just ask somebody. Hey, I'm going
to need 70 green Skittles.
I want crunchy
ASAP.
peanut butter and blackberry jam. Go get it for me.
You would be the worst boss. I would hate to be your assistant.
No, I don't think I would terrorize anybody.
I think you would. I think you definitely would. All right. So we got this game, the Eagles and the Chiefs. It's weird because we normally cover college football. You and I both watch the NFL.
Yes.
I don't know where you're at on this. I am ready for something new. I am ready for not the Chiefs, but I also appreciate if they do win that they're doing something that's never been done before.
Yeah, that's the thing that I think is so interesting about sports, to be serious for a minute. It's the entire point of watching and consuming sports, Andy, is to see greatness. And I feel like people don't appreciate greatness in the midst of greatness. I think they only appreciate it after, right? And you're older than me, so where were you during the Jordan Bulls dynasty? Were you
I was
Were you
prime
locked in?
time. Like I was a teenager. Yes, I was watching every second of those games.
Were people like rooting against the Bulls in Jordan
I
because they
feel
were
like
annoyed by their
no,
presence?
maybe the second 3 championships, but they were coming off getting over the bad boy Pistons, and people hated the bad boy Pistons so much, other than Pistons fans, that it was easy to like the Bulls because they weren't
But it's
Bill
such an
Laimbeer
it's such an
and
interesting
Isaiah
phenomenon.
Thomas and yeah.
Because people say that winning is the cure to all, but if you win too much, you become hated. Like there's
Well,
like a
and the
line-
Chiefs, like, because who doesn't like Patrick Mahomes? Like, what about Patrick Mahomes would annoy you? Unless
the
you
ref
don't,
conspiracy.
unless you don't like a voice that sounds like Kermit the Frog. But the ref conspiracy is what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting to here, because Patrick Mahomes in a vacuum is there's nothing offensive about him. Everybody would love him, but he wins too much, and he can work the refs, and so now everybody hates him.
Yeah, but I also feel like Patrick Mahomes is already in the GOAT conversation, and like having the pleasure of watching him chase a record that would have felt completely uncatchable 4 years ago is. See, I told you this place was haunted. I don't know what that was. Hopefully everything's okay, but I think it's a pleasure to be able to watch that.
It
You know,
is.
and like I don't get sick of
That
it.
said, I wouldn't
Yeah,
mind
yeah.
seeing the Eagles win this Sunday.
Yeah, it's like the Eagles aren't even that new to me though. It's like we saw the Eagles in the Super Bowl.
Well, they've
like,
been in 3 Super Bowls in the last
7
years.
So it's not like
8
the
years,
Cincinnati
so.
Bengals are back
Yeah.
or something. I mean, even they played. So I don't know. Like I'd like to see the Detroit Lions would be new. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that you always are rooting for people in that position.
Well,
to, like, I mean, it's like it happens a lot in college football the last 2 years, right? Washington, Michigan, Notre Dame. There are a lot of teams that kind of, you know, Indiana was new, and it's always fun. But it's like at the same time too. Like I might be telling my grandchildren that like Patrick Mahomes is the greatest quarterback of all time. Like,
And
why
we
would I
stayed
take
at the same
watching him
hotel
for-
as him
why
right
would I
before he
take-
beat the Eagles.
Why would I take that for granted?
Yeah.
So I don't understand the thing of like, oh, I'm sick of it. Like it's football. It's the Super Bowl. I don't get it.
So I'm glad you brought up the Lions, though, because there's something Dan Campbell said after last year's loss
Yeah, I know
in the
what you're gonna
NFC
say.
Championship game. And it brings me to what I want to talk about in regard to college football, because the Chiefs are in the midst of a dynasty. I think in NFL terms, it's already a dynasty, and obviously if they three-peat, then it's really a dynasty. But we've seen college football teams that have had this level of dominance. It seems like it's harder in the NFL. I think it's going to be harder in college football coming up. And what Dan Campbell said with the Lions, I found very interesting, because he said, guys, this really hurts. This is after they lose to the 49ers. We may not get back here. And then you look at the Lions this year, they were awesome. They lost to the Commanders. They lost both their coordinators. Like, they might not get back there.
Well, I think that like winning an individual game in the NFL is just so much harder
Yeah.
than winning a college football game because, you know, the talent discrepancy.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many games in college where the best teams could play their third stringers and be
Yeah.
okay. And that's not how it is in the NFL. Like the Cleveland Browns could beat the Chiefs if the Chiefs play their worst game of the season.
Yeah.
So, you know, that also then creates a incredible amount of different types of results in the playoffs. And getting back, it's like Jaden Daniels being who he is. You just get them on the wrong day, you get your ass kicked. Like that's just what happens. So I think that that's true. But I also feel like in the NFL, the dynasty thing is very quarterback dependent.
Right.
Like, you
and
know,
Patrick Mahomes is not going anywhere.
that's right. So, like, as you try to turn this into a college football discussion, it's like if you have a franchise quarterback and the best quarterbacks in the league in the NFL tend to stay on those teams for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
You don't often see like Josh Allen isn't going to be on the Chargers in a few years. You
Right.
know, like Josh Allen will be a Bill. Because when you find that guy, it's so freaking hard to find the right quarterback to begin with. Like keeping them is so important, right?
Right.
So there's not a lot of quarterback transferring, you know, for
Yeah.
lack of a better term in the NFL. So like to me, it's like now that recruiting rankings aren't stackable the way they were in the past, and players are leaving when they're not playing more quickly than they've ever have before in the history of our game. You know, the loyalty aspect of this is my college, this is where I went to school, this is a part of me forever is gone. Like being dominant year over year over year, although still a handful of teams have an advantage and others don't, is much more complicated than maybe even in the NFL, because like it's like so funny, it's almost flipped. When the Patriots were winning all those Super Bowls in a row, I was like, this is so much more impressive than Nick Saban, because the variability of the games, that was a word I was looking for earlier, by the way, is so much higher for Bill Belichick than it is for Nick Saban. Nick Saban plays 85% of his games against teams that have inferior players.
Yeah. Nick Saban's a double-digit favorite in most of his games.
But now I think you can make the actual case that having a dynasty in the NFL is easier than in college.
Right, because you can keep your quarterback.
And that's how and if you want a personification or a example of how college football has changed over the last 3 years, I think that that's probably the chief example of it.
Ohio State.
Pun intended.
Ohio State. So they win the national title. We've talked about they're going to have to completely revamp their defense. They lost both coordinators. Like, it's Ohio State. Yeah, they're going to still be good. Yes, they still have Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs. They're still going to be good. They're probably still going to make the playoff. But to expect them to win another national title is asking an awful lot.
And what's the number one problem right now facing Ohio State?
Quarterback. Who's it going to be? Now maybe Julian Saban's that guy. But even if he is, the window is 2 years.
Right.
Because Julian Saban just sat a year.
And we're seeing that at places like Florida. We're seeing it at South Carolina.
Exactly.
You know, places who have dynamic quarterbacks they're able to hold on to.
Well, like if you're Shane Beamer in South Carolina, like, you have to look at it like this is the year.
We have to do it.
Because Lenora Sellers can go pro after this year.
And then what's like the response to that of like, okay, well, we're Ole Miss. We're getting Jackson Dart back. We're bringing a bunch of guys back from a team that won 10 games, and they still don't make the 12-team playoff. It's like, did South Carolina swing for the fences this offseason to try to add more players to their roster? Maybe they did. I think it's nothing like it was for Ole Miss.
Right. They don't have probably the capability that Ohio State had going into last year.
Even when we had a tangible example of a team that brought back a quarterback who, by the way, Jackson Dart, don't know if you noticed this, shooting up draft boards right now.
He was by far the best quarterback at the Senior Bowl.
So, like, he could be a fringe first-round, second-round pick when this is all said and done. You know, with that defensive line and those receivers they had with Juice. I mean, I don't need to walk you through it. You remember. They did not make the 12-team playoff.
I know.
So, like, it's an unbelievable ask. And it's like, I think maybe the answer to that question is still going to be what the answer has always been, which is, in order to be a dynasty in college football, you have to recruit top 5 classes for 5 years in a row. And there's more attrition now than there ever was before. But, like, the fact that the attrition is probably even a good thing, because the players that aren't good enough don't play and they leave.
So Ryan Day.
And then you have more roster spots to backfill.
Ryan Day signs a new contract. He's going to make $12.5 million a year. Part of it's probably hazard pay for going through the crap he went through after the Michigan loss.
Here's a little 25% kick for, having to hire security to guard your house.
But also, it is because he is one of the few people who can do what you just said. Stack top 5 classes on top of one another.
And I don't know why that's become so much harder than it feels like it's been.
Well, NIL, same thing. It's Eli Drinkwitz, who we talked about with our best coaches list, and in the blurb I wrote about him, part of the reason I put him on the list is the work he did off the field to create an environment that made it where he could get elite talent in Missouri to stay home from an NIL standpoint.
Yeah.
Burden. Yep. Luther Burden goes somewhere else before.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no question. Like, Luther Burden might be like a player that needs to wait 2 years to play at Alabama.
Or Brian Hartline gets Luther Burden to come to Ohio State.
Yeah, and then Luther Burden has to sit behind Marvin Harrison Jr. and Jeremiah Smith for it makes sense. So,
Ari, we owe a huge thank you to Xfinity for bringing us to New Orleans to pregame before the biggest game of the season. When we're streaming shows live, having Xfinity's 99.9% network reliability is an absolute godsend. It makes sure we get our show to you. It makes sure you can watch our show. It makes sure you can watch your favorite shows on TV, or maybe you're playing Madden or you're playing the college football video game where you might actually run into Ari as your opponent.
I'm telling you, man, nobody wants the smoke. Nobody.
I don't think you're that good.
I'm excellent.
You talk a big game.
I'm incredible.
You can count on fast speeds and reliability, whether you're playing Ari or somebody, who's better than Ari, or whether you're streaming your favorite show in the house or if you're at the game. with Wi-Fi PowerBoost only from Xfinity Mobile. You get fast speeds up to a gig at home or on the go. Enjoy unmatched value while staying connected to the ones you love with the most reliable network and nationwide 5G. Visit at Xfinity.com for more information.
Quarterback attrition, and like here's the funniest thing about the quarterback position too, to switch back to that, because I don't think we can. It's like there was some thought 6 months ago that like Lagway was going to go to A&M. It's like, well, even if you find your guy,
fired, which was a realistic possibility in October, if Billy Napier had been fired, Lagway could have been a free agent, could have gone anywhere. And now we're looking at it like Florida's got a window here of 2 years with DJ Lagway.
But I also don't feel
like
he
could be somewhere else.
We're that far off from a place like South Carolina recruiting and developing a player like Lenora Sellers, and then Lenora Sellers leaving South Carolina. I'm happy it didn't happen, for a place that has a ton of money and desperately needs a quarterback. I can think of a few right now that could use his services.
You know, we still haven't seen that yet.
We saw it with Jordan Addison. We have not seen it with...
And Jordan Addison's situation was fairly unique. He wins the Biletnikoff with Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett goes and gets drafted. The OC, Mark Whipple, leaves. Like, Jordan Addison goes through spring, and he's like, this is nothing like what I did last year, so I'm bouncing. But we really have not seen the quarterback...
We'll see that?
I don't know. So we've seen it, like Darian Mensah with Tulane this year, but that's going to Duke. That's not necessarily the same thing. Like, I don't think we'll see it with an SEC or a Big Ten school where somebody comes along, they're really good, and then a higher on the food chain SEC or Big Ten school snags them.
Like Georgia this year.
Right.
Going to get Sellers.
Right. I don't know that we're going to see that, because I think South Carolina has enough money to make sure that doesn't happen.
But if Georgia tries, which then again gets us into this whole...
We heard stories about Jeremiah Smith getting offered this and that.
But if Georgia tries, even if they don't feel like they're going to be successful, and drives up NIL values on guys in order to make them broker in terms of building their own whole team, and again, this is hypothetical, but don't you want to make him as expensive as possible for South Carolina, a place that already making it rain?
Well, and
don't you knock on the door no matter what every year routinely?
I honestly think that's why some of these people did this with Ohio State. Like, you make Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate as expensive as possible, so Ohio State can't retain everybody. So Ohio State can't spend some of that on freshmen. So Ohio State doesn't have that money.
You make an offer that you're not heartbroken if they say no, but you'd be happy to pay if they say yes.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, everybody says, it's uncapped. You can spend whatever you want. Everybody has a limit. Everybody has a finite amount of money. I heard Billy Napier talking about this on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And, it's not, even if there's no salary cap, your boss is telling you this is how much you have. Your collective is telling you this is how much you have.
Right. Yeah. So, I don't know if there's going to be like a setting the market, underbelly to this whole thing. And we're going right. But it's like, do you think a team is going to win? I mean, it was insane that Alabama did it during the era they did it in, let alone this era.
Yeah,
is
I think it'd be
college
much harder
football
for Alabama
dynasty
to do that.
dead? Like, we talk about the death of the super team. But if the super team is dead,
then the dynasty's probably dead too.
Is the dynasty also dead?
I think so, because of the limited time you get. Because I think to have a dynasty, you'd have to have a great quarterback now. Like, you can win a national title in college football without a great quarterback, but I don't know if you can win multiples of them without a great quarterback.
That just won the national title did it with a rental.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So, like, hitting on 4 rentals in a row or 3 rentals in a row, it's hard to hit on 1 rental, let alone 2 or 3
That's what I'm saying. They would have to hit on another rental, and they have to replace their entire defense to win. Yeah. Or they have to hit on a young quarterback
and
that they
have to catch every possible break in the season along the way to get there.
And maybe Ohio State will win a national title. We'll look stupid, but I don't think it's going to be very easy for them.
I don't even know if the expectation is that they do next year. I think this is the first time you can honestly say that an Ohio State team is going into the offseason with the understanding that they might pull back next year and it not be the end of the world.
Correct. And like Michigan, this past year, it wasn't the end of the world. Now, I think them beating Ohio State helped that
Michigan
along.
Also was like, we're all in. Right. Like during that.
Well,
whole,
and also
yeah.
we've gone over the timing of Harbaugh's exit, like what that means and how that.
I know,
changed
but Michigan's
everything.
entire mantra during their 2023 run was "We are all in."
Yes.
Like it's like we're either
And I feel
gonna
like
win
Ohio
the title
State
or,
was like that this year.
yeah.
Ohio
But
State's good every year.
But if Ohio State would have lost, like if their season would have ended after the Michigan game, or they would have lost to Tennessee or Oregon, like I don't think that you would be able to go into the following season feeling like, oh yeah, okay, well if they don't win the national title, it's fine. Like I think that the fire that was at the edge of Ryan Day's feet, the fire that was around that program, the Woody Hayes Center, has dissipated, and I think it has been replaced by rational thought. And the rational thought is, we lost 20 people, we lost both coordinators, we lost our quarterback. We don't know who our quarterback's going to be next year yet. If they go 10-2, which by the way was an absolute disaster of a season 4 years ago, that might just be okay. And they may still make the playoff.
And we still get them in the playoff, and they still have a chance.
And then maybe they win a game or two. They get to the Sweet 16. By the way, for those watching at home, the Sweet 16 is exactly what I'm calling the quarterfinal.
That's the Elite Eight, though. There's only 8 teams in the quarterfinal.
I'm calling it the Sweet 16 because Sweet 16 is the weekend before.
Well, the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight are on the same weekend.
No, Sweet 16 should be the semifinal.
What?
Yeah, we'll work through this. We
got to workshop it.
In my head, the Sweet 16 is the quarterfinal, and the Elite Eight is the semifinal.
It's weird how it makes sense when I hear it coming out of your mouth, and I think about it. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Sweet 16 is the quarterfinal. The Elite Eight is the semifinal, and the
quarterfinal is there are 8 teams left.
And
in any tournament,
I'm saying in my head, Sweet 16 is the quarterfinal. Elite Eight is the semifinal, and the Final Four, which is where the national championship game occurs, is the title game.
Yeah, the college basketball tournament having 2 rounds each weekend is what throws us off here.
So I think what I'm saying makes perfect sense, and I would appreciate it if you didn't push back on it publicly.
Like I said, coming out of your mouth, it sounds perfectly reasonable.
Yes, yeah, and that's all that I really care about. Like that's like going to be on my epitaph. It sounded reasonable coming out of my mouth.
So another thing, it's weird that it is starting to sound perfectly reasonable, and I'm not sure it should, as we go into the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The ref conspiracy theory. Because I do not believe for a second that there's a ref conspiracy theory, that anybody's trying to, like, that they met at the NFL offices and are like, you know what? Forget those teams in New York and Los Angeles. We're going to make sure the team from Kansas City has all the help it can get from the refs.
Yeah.
Like, but then you watch them play, and part of it is maybe because Patrick Mahomes works the refs so well. Like, you're like, that kind of feels that way. But, like, I was thinking about this in terms of college football. Like, are there any college football conspiracy theories that you'd believe?
That I believe?
Or that you, at least thinking back on, maybe there's something to it. The one weird one, and we were talking about in the press box in the national championship game. Ohio State finally drew a holding call. Ohio State's defense finally drew a holding call on the opposing offense for the first time since September. Like, how in the world does that happen? Now, I don't believe there's any conspiracy there because
like when you say,
how would that help the Big Ten?
Is there a conspiracy theory that you believe? What is the theory then?
I read a funny one. There was a Reddit thread about 2 years ago on college football conspiracy theories.
Okay.
That Coach O's real accent is just a posh English accent.
We'll do it.
He sounds like he's from Derbyshire.
That would be kind of funny. Stevie Wonder's not actually blind. I don't know if you've gone down that rabbit hole.
I have gone down that rabbit hole, yes.
Yeah, he saw something falling and he grabbed it or something. Like if people saw it happen. I don't know. Maybe it's just intuition. So here's the thing. There are no conspiracy theories that I do not believe.
Oh, all of them. Okay.
Was that what I said?
There are no conspiracy theories that I do not believe. You believe them all, is what you're saying.
There are no conspiracy theories that I believe in college football.
Very different.
And what I think has actually happened is that anytime anything is a crazy occurrence or there's something that happens that's abnormal or statistically improbable, that's where people go now. And I don't know if it's the political world that we're in right now or if everybody always feels like there's some Illuminati-type figurehead pulling the strings on everything.
Greg Sankey.
You want to know what the thing is? That's a really weird stat. It's a bizarre stat to think that Ohio State can have 4 or 5 defensive linemen on their team who are going to be playing in the NFL for the next 10 years who couldn't draw a single holding penalty from September to the national title game is an absurd stat. But instead of just acknowledging that it's weird and like that it's like unlucky.
It wouldn't make any sense as a conspiracy, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, we have to make it a bigger thing than
Yeah.
it is because people are just so prone to wanting to believe there's some larger figure in the background that's just like controlling the world.
Well, we saw it
like,
with Miami, the Miami Virginia Tech game, and that's a Friday night game. Everybody was watching, and everybody's like, "Oh, the ACC just wants Miami to get in the playoff and make the national title
people
game."
actually believe that, Andy.
Oh, they did,
Actually believe
100%.
it.
Like there will be somebody in the chat right now who's going, "You guys don't actually believe that was called fairly, do you?"
But that conspiracy directly conflicts with the other one, which is if the ACC is in the bag for Miami because they want their biggest brands to bolster their conference, then why would you screw Ohio State for 8 weeks?
Right. Why would the Big Ten do
Ohio
that?
State is their cash cow.
Yeah.
So, like, which one is it? So, I mean, I don't know, like, what people...
Alabama fans for years thought the SEC was out to get them. For years. Like,
Doesn't everybody believe that the announcer on the game is against their favorite team
Absolutely.
and that all the world is against them and, like, it's some sort of, like, crazy... Like, here's the thing. I said this on the show before, and I'll say it again. I was visiting with an SEC recruiting staffer in his office for a story. And, like, he got on all fours, like, looking underneath the desk because he was concerned that his office was bugged. This is a person who works in the sport.
right.
Who thinks that another SEC, and I'm not going to tell you what year it was
Thinks
or what
another
school it
SEC
was.
school it's the CIA
espionage.
and the KGB and Mossad. Like, yeah.
And it's the dumbest thing in the world, and I don't mean to be mean player personnel people. I'm not saying you're not smart. I think you're very smart. I think you're integral.
Nobody's bugging your office.
No, but I also think that you should be paid more because I think it's interesting that the personnel people in college don't get paid more. That said, what you're doing is extremely followable.
Yeah.
When you offer somebody, when you're interested, when they visit, there is a website out there. Have you heard of it?
On3.
That tracks your every move. So there's nothing that you could say in your office that is not something that a general fan, don't even have to be Connor Stallions. You can just be a regular fan, and you can put together who someone's board is. I used to do it all the time when I was a beat writer.
We got to get Connor
Here's
Stallions.
Ohio State's 12 top targets.
Ari, we got to get Connor Stallions on the show. I actually want to know what college football conspiracy theories he believes. Because I bet he's got a few.
I mean, there's a 900,000 page document of just...
Right.
Yeah.
Connor Stallions, if you're watching this, I know
there wasn't.
I know we know some of the same people. Come on the show.
No, I can't pull out my phone right now because we're in a professional studio, but like he did tweet like a long tweet about like preseason rankings and how that they're like poisoning the voting process.
Let us have him on to discuss our way too early top 25.
Because and it actually I think that like I don't know if I'm going to be chastised for this, but like he's a smart individual.
Yeah.
He's not a stupid person.
No.
What he did might have been stupid. Getting caught the way that he did might have been stupid, but like his actual ability that he possesses as a sign stealer / tendency code breaker is pretty remarkable. But he basically, his premise is that if you come into a season with preconceived notions of how good teams are based on roster and all the things that we do, then we reward teams for beating the teams that have preconceived notions early on, and then it's just a series of results, like what happened
How'd that
with
work
the
out
SEC.
for Indiana last year?
But you would have said that about the SEC, and it worked out that
Right.
the SEC was propped up by fake results all year because they.
But they also
routinely-
didn't get the teams they wanted into the playoff.
No, that's true, but I think that we found out though that all the quality wins that we were propping up the teams around all year long weren't actually quality. So I think that's what he's saying. Like he's saying that
All right.
we're identifying and assigning quality.
Connor Stallions. I know you've occasionally hit the message boards at the Wolverine. We know you like On3. Come on.
I mean, I don't understand.
Let's go.
What would he have to lose if like we're not going to ask you about the sign stealing thing? Like, what do you have to lose? Just come on.
Yeah. I want to talk
We know you
preseason
talk to
rankings.
reporters. Like, it's not like it's some weird
I want to
secret.
talk preseason rankings. Let's go. Ari, we got a great show for everybody. Kyle Rudolph,
Yeah.
former Notre Dame star, former Minnesota Viking star, joins us. We're going to ask him about picking Notre Dame over Ohio State as an in-state guy who had an Ohio State offer, who Jim Tressel really liked. And later in the show, I am going to help you do better at your Super Bowl party, and I'm going to help all of you eat your wings properly at your Super Bowl party. Never let it be said we don't teach you stuff on this show. Never let it be said that this is not an educational program. We're not wasting time here. We're educating. We'll be right back. Honor to be joined by Kyle Rudolph, former Notre Dame star, former Minnesota Vikings star. All right, I got to ask you this before we get started because we have many Notre Dame questions, but are you allowed to walk around in this city? There was a pretty famous play in the Superdome a few years ago where you scored a walk-off touchdown. You may or may not have pushed off. And these Saints fans are crazy.
Yeah, I'm not very. I did get into a nice restaurant last night without a reservation, so they don't hate me that much. They took care of us, got us a table, but it's funny because people often want to describe the catch and the may or may not have pushed off. Like, people do realize that year pass interference was reviewed because the Saints got screwed the year before. So if there was any push off whatsoever, you don't think they would have used that opportunity to be like, oh yeah, you're right. This is the whole reason we have this rule.
But also the Saints getting screwed the year before was like the worst
worst
thing that's ever happened in the history of the NFL,
Just
right? Yeah.
Blatant penalty. So it's like, trust me, we had a couple calls that year. Like, we were in Green Bay week 2. Dalvin Cook caught a touchdown pass, and like Diggs ran into someone on the other side of the field, and it was like getting ready to go out, kick the extra point. Oh no, replay. No, there was pass interference.
Oh, they called it a pick play.
It wasn't even a pick.
It wasn't even.
It was like he just
Oh,
ran into somebody on the other side of the field. So there were so many egregious like pass interference reviews throughout the course of that season. That's why I was like, honestly, once it happened, I was like, oh no. They're going to completely make an example out of this.
An entire NFL game where there was no PI and you're just allowed to beat the crap out of each other.
I think people kind of want to see that this week on Sunday. What is that like, though? I've covered basketball games where the winning team hits a buzzer beater, or the road team hits a buzzer beater. But the road walk-off playoff game, what is it like when the Superdome goes silent?
Yeah, it was wild because, not to just keep piling on to Saints fans, but like we had the exact opposite in 18, the 17 season with the Minneapolis Miracle.
Yeah, right.
It was like home team walk-off, the loudest I've ever heard a stadium ever. And then the complete opposite was in New Orleans. Like, you catch the touchdown. And it was so loud in that game, like I would get on a knee in the middle of the huddle just so I could hear the quarterback. Like, I couldn't stand. My spot in the huddle is directly across from the quarterback. You have the offensive line, the other 4 skill players. And I could not hear Kirk from 5 feet away from him. So I would have to get on a knee. It could tighten the huddle up so we could hear. That's how loud the Superdome was at the time. To complete silence. Just utter shock. There's no way for the third year in how many years we just lost in the playoffs again. It was us in 18, then obviously the NFC Championship against the Rams the year before, and then us again. And that was January of 20. So they went 18, 19, 20, 3 straight years with devastating losses in the playoffs.
So I got to ask you, because we are, a few weeks removed from Notre Dame making the run that it did. But I wanted to back the bus up to something we were talking about before we started recording, because that's always when the good stuff happens, right? So I covered Ohio State during Urban's 10-year period, or the 10 years that he was there. And I went down to Cincinnati Elder High School, which is where you went, and wrote a story about Tommy Kramer, an offensive lineman who was the first in-state player with an Ohio State offer from Urban Meyer to not go to Ohio State. And we know that Notre Dame is kind of private Catholic high schools are like little embassies, right? Yeah. All over the country for Notre Dame, where they were able to transcend geography. But take me into, how you ended up there, and just going to ask you because it's a cheat sheet. Like, if Urban Meyer was the head coach when you were in high school, how would that have gone?
Yeah, it would have made my decision a lot more difficult. Like, you think back to Ohio State at the time when I was in college, they were winning just as much.
Yeah.
They had national championship games. They were going to BCS bowl games every single year. But Jim Tressel's offense, I would have gone and been a tackle.
Yeah, offensive tackle.
It might not have been a bad thing. I look at how much more money tackles make than we did in the NFL. Like, it might have been a good thing, but at the time for me, I was like a skinny basketball player that had to put weight on just to play the tight end position. So then to think about, what things would have been like to then have to block all the time. Like, I didn't want to do that. So I took visits to Ohio State. I liked Ohio State a lot. As much as Coach Tressel told me, no, like, we just don't have a tight end like you. If you come here, we'll use you. I said, yeah, you'll put 30 pounds on me and make me a tackle.
Well, just so you know, it was a recurring joke on the Ohio State beat every single year. Every single a tight end caught a pass. Like, the entire press box went, oh, my God. Like, it was like a surprise.
It really wasn't until Cade Stover. Like, Cade Stover's when we finally stopped making those jokes. And that was like 3 years ago.
Yeah, I think he's in his second year in the NFL.
Yeah.
It's like, so for me, having Coach Charlie Weiss at Notre Dame, Anthony Fasano, John Carlson had both just been second-round picks in the NFL. We're playing in the NFL. You have this just straight pipeline to the league. And to me, as much as I appreciated what Notre Dame offered from an education standpoint and having a Notre Dame degree as your fallback plan, not a bad plan B, but it was all about how can I get to the NFL. And I felt like Notre Dame gave me a better chance to be a tight end in the NFL. Now, like I said, looking back, being a tackle wouldn't have been bad. There's a lot of former tight end tackles.
Lane Johnson playing in the Super Bowl this week.
Yeah.
Quarterback to tight end to offensive tackle.
Lane's done pretty well. I think of another former Philly tight end, former Philly tackle, Jason Peters, who I think he got drafted by the Bills as a tight end, and they were like, yeah, you're going to be a tackle.
Well, before we were recording, you also mentioned that Urban tried to recruit you to Florida.
Yeah.
As a Florida grad, I got to say, why not? That would have been fun.
Yeah, for me, it was like, not that I wasn't willing to go away. Like, I liked Florida. I liked LSU. I liked Oklahoma, Texas. I loved all those schools. But ultimately, to have the ability for my parents to drive 4 hours to South Bend for home games, then we played Michigan State, Purdue. Most years they could drive to 10 out of the 12 games.
That's
then
awesome.
if we played BC, obviously it's a flight to Boston, and then we would go to the West Coast every year, Stanford, USC.
And you get, like at Notre Dame, you get the gamut. Because you're playing at USC. Sometimes you play at Michigan. Sometimes they'll play some of the schools in the Big Ten, but they'll occasionally play an SEC school. So it feels like you get a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and obviously at that time, this was kind of before TV is the way that it is now. At Notre Dame, we played on NBC national television every home game. Yeah. And then if we were playing on the road, most of the time it was the primetime 7:30, 8 o'clock ABC kickoff. So, that opportunity to play on the biggest stage week in and week out was ultimately why I went to Notre Dame.
Being an alum of that place, it's like, it's one of the most triggering topics, whether it's good or bad, right? Like, every time we talk about Notre Dame, live
right
chat.
Now, as we're doing this, the chat is going off. Who cares about Notre Dame? Nobody cares about Notre Dame.
And that's why they're in the chat commenting about Notre Dame.
Correct.
Right, constantly. But there's been a lot going on there, between coaching changes and new regimes and the sport changing. What is your thought process of what Notre Dame's ceiling was as a program maybe 4 years ago, and whether Brian Kelly got them to that point?
Yeah.
And now, do you feel like winning a national championship against the teams that have recruited at a pace that was maybe hard for them to keep up because of transfer issues? Admission issues, I should say. Is it changed in your mind?
Yeah, I think we saw this year that talent disparity, that gap that we've fought for a long time. When the 2012 team lined up against Alabama in the Orange Bowl, there was no chance. Like, I think even if Alabama doesn't play well and we play our perfect game, we probably still don't win. Fast forward, Coach Kelly has 2 more college football appearances: first-round exit against Clemson, first-round exit against Bama. So that talent disparity was so great. Like, yeah, we could go 12-0 and beat USC, maybe beat a couple Big Ten teams, ACC. We play 5 ACC schools every year. But when you play the big game against the Alabamas, the Clemsons at the time when they were rolling, the Georgias, we played Georgia twice during that era. And they played them tough, but they could never get over the hump and win that game against a perennial powerhouse that's recruited very well over a period of time. And this year I didn't see that. And honestly, even to the national championship game, I would have loved to seen what that game would have looked like with all of our players healthy. Mm-hmm. Benjamin Morrison,
or 5 quarters.
Number one, like, just maybe I don't agree with playing man coverage on 3rd and 11 against the best receiver in college football, but it's like, at least if we're going to play man like we did all year, if we had our corner, who's probably going to be a first-round pick, out there to match up against the best receiver.
But it's really telling about, you lose Benjamin Morrison. You had Charles Jagus out most of the season.
Yeah.
You had the center goes out, Ashton Craig goes out, and they still make it to the national championship game.
Left tackle gets hurt against Penn State.
Yeah.
He doesn't play in the national championship game. Riley Mills gets hurt against IU. I mean,
they were pretty.
We had
up,
5 quality starters that didn't play in that game, and Ohio State was rolling.
Yeah.
So they were gritty and they made it close, but like that 31-7, it's like, at that point as a Notre Dame fan, you're kind of just like, well, we gave it our best shot. Like, ultimately, the ball didn't bounce our way.
I felt for a minute there, because we were at the game, and it felt for a minute there when it was within 8, and they were getting the ball back. You're like, all right, magic may happen.
Well, here's the thing: Ohio State was in a very high leverage moment, and I know that the player they were throwing it to was the best receiver in college football, but he was also a true freshman, 18-year-old. Like, if he drops the pass,
right?
Like, Notre Dame gets the ball back down 8 with a few minutes left.
Yeah, it was like a minute.
Yeah,
minute 36 or something like that. But like, we were there as well, and all I could think about was kind of, this is weird the way fate works. Like, we're in the stadium of the Atlanta Falcons, who blew the biggest lead in like the Super Bowl, and you're like, okay, does 31-7 become the new 28-3? Is this going to be all over the place? And it's like one score happens, then it becomes 16, which is exactly what happened in the 28-3 New England Atlanta. They cut it to 16, so then it becomes 2 scores, and ultimately Marcus decided to kick the field goal down 16.
Yeah.
Don't agree with it. Don't really understand why. You're still down 2 touchdowns if you make it. So they cut it to 8, get them to 3rd and 11, obviously make the huge play. And, he's a true freshman receiver. But
that's a testament to, I think, Notre Dame, too, this year and who they were. Because we were there, and for a minute there in the third quarter, it felt like, okay, this game's getting away from them. But I don't even remember, like, just thinking about it off the top of my head, it being 31-7. Mm-hmm. It never felt that dire, even when you were there.
As a Notre Dame fan, it did.
I think
after that first drive, like, you could just see the energy kind of leaving our side of Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and it's like, man, we can't do anything. Like, they're taking away the run.
Yeah.
We didn't have a stop on 3rd down. There was, I think, Will Howard had 1 incompletion.
Yeah, he had his best game at Ohio State that game.
His 1 incompletion was the ball. I think it was Travion Henderson down the sideline, and he probably should have caught it. That was his 1 incompletion of the first half. They were perfect on 3rd down. We couldn't guard anyone on 3rd down. It didn't matter if it was 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 15. We couldn't cover anyone. It was just like, this might get really out of hand.
Before we let you go, I sent a picture of your last touchdown ball to Ari this morning, and he was fascinated by it, because for those who don't know, you caught your last touchdown. It was your 50th career touchdown catch in the last regular season game of the 2022 season.
Correct.
Playing for the Bucs. It also turned out to be Tom Brady's last regular season touchdown.
Evidently it did.
We're showing a picture of it. The viewer will see the picture of this.
Yeah.
Was it your idea to put "from Tom Brady" in parentheses on the ball?
I have some of the call it monumental touchdowns. Obviously, the Saints one that we talked about earlier. I've got that one. It's painted up. They always put like a description, whether it was like your stats from the game, or in that case, like 50th career touchdown from Tom Brady. I have the Vikings record for touchdowns by a tight end. I caught that from Sam Bradford, so it's like 22-yard completion from Sam Bradford.
Oh,
so,
okay.
like,
So it's not just a Brady thing. They do it for everyone.
It's just because that ball.
But that's the thing.
sure
Like,
they want
I
that ball in
devalued
Canton.
the most valuable ball in all of sports by putting Kyle Rudolph's 50th touchdown on it.
Well, no, but here's the thing, because I'm a memorabilia sports card guy who likes being a degenerate. So what's more important to you? The personal accomplishment, which, by the way, congratulations. That's awesome. You know, I don't think I could have done that. Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. But your personal accomplishment, or the fact that you might have one of the most valuable footballs on the face of the earth, and like, what would it take for you to put it on eBay?
I think
I mean, like, what? Like, if you've seen how much like Shohei's baseball went, like, I mean, I don't know if that would, because he threw another touchdown in the playoffs the following week. It wasn't his last touch, but like, I'm assuming that would be.
I mean, technically that doesn't count. Playoff stats don't.
Oh, that's it. It's true.
But
the last one.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering though.
Because like they don't like playoff catches. Don't like if you look at my career catches, it doesn't say whatever plus playoffs. It's just regular season stats.
So okay, well then maybe that you're probably writing the description on eBay right now. That's good. But like, how much would somebody have to offer you for the ball?
I don't know. I think it's better that it is so devalued and painted that at the time we knew it was my 50th touchdown. Like as soon as I caught it, there's a whole story that kind of goes like, I can paint a little picture for you. So coming out of the 2019 season, I had 47 touchdowns. So I'm like gonna just blow past 50, like not even thinking about it as, obviously it's a big milestone. 2020, 1 touchdown. I had never had less than 3 in a season, so I have 1 in 2020. All right, whatever. Go to New York the next year, 1 touchdown. I'm like, all right, maybe I'm never going to get to 50. It's just like that number, I'll never get there. So 2 years in a row, I have 1 touchdown. Then the 2022 offseason works the way it does. I end up going to Tampa, playing with Tom Brady, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to catch like 12. Like, it's Tom Brady. Well, I hardly played. I didn't even have 12 catches. Like, I think I was dressed for like 5 or 6 games.
I actually think you were on my fantasy team that year.
That would have been an awful pick. 'Cause you didn't have to worry about putting me in your lineup because I wasn't active ever.
Yeah.
But so end up going through the year. We're playing Baltimore on Thursday night, about halfway through the year. And I get put in like a red zone package. It's a 3 tight end package with Mike Evans on the backside. Mike's going to run like a whip route. The 2 tight ends are going to block, which at this point in my career, I was always one of those 2 tight ends that was staying in and blocking. They weren't going to have me go run the route. And no, in this case, the 2 tight ends are blocking. I get to run the route. And it was like basically I ran an over route above Mike Evans. So Tom gets the ball. He's going to look at Mike first. If Mike's covered, you got me coming over the top. We get down inside the 20-yard line. Byron Leftwich is our offensive coordinator at the time, calls the personnel group. I knew by the personnel group what the play call was. And I'm like, all right, here we go. Like, it's either going to Mike or me. That's it. And I said, playing Baltimore, former Notre Dame grad or alumni, Kyle Hamilton's the safety. He's in the middle of the field. And, like, I'm just looking pre-snap. I'm like, all I got to do is cross his face because there's no one on that third of the field because the corner's covering Mike.
But before the play, are you visualizing 50?
Oh, yeah. I'm like,
okay,
this is it.
Yeah.
Like, either the ball's going to get thrown to Mike right away because the corner plays off, in which case I won't be open, or if the corner jumps Mike, I'm catching number 50 right here. So set hut, ball snapped. I was not fast at the time, but I felt like I was hauling ass across it because I know all I have to do is cross that safety's face. And if I cross his face and he doesn't jump me, there's no one on the other side. And I run right by him and turn to look, just thinking the ball is going to be – it's the best quarterback that's ever played the game.
Yeah.
He put it in like the 4th row. Like it wasn't even close. And it was like – it was so demoralizing. Like Tom even put his head down and like said, and like he never does that on the field. Like he's always positive and encouraging. And I just kept running and ran to the sideline because I knew I wasn't back in that was my one play.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? maybe 50 is just not in the cards. The greatest quarterback of all time couldn't hit me wide open. So last regular season game of the year, I started to play a little bit more towards the end of the year. Tom had been fighting for me to get out there, and we weren't very good on third down. We weren't very good in the red zone. He's like, hey, I got this big guy here. I brought him down here. Like, maybe we could use him a little bit. So first third down in the game in Atlanta, same thing. As soon as the personnel group's called, like, I know I'm in, finally. And then pre-snap, we were like 2-by-2. Chris Godwin went in motion to the other side to make it 3-by-1, and it's like me and a rookie white linebacker. And I'm like, this is going to be the easiest touchdown I've ever got. And sure enough, like I have a corner out, so I run right around him, and Tom hits me for the touchdown. So
And you're
it's
like, because you missed me earlier, I'm keeping this one.
well, and that's the thing. So like at the time, we knew it was 50 for me. We didn't know Tom was going to retire. Like I would have thought at that point, Tom's still playing. Like Tom's probably going to go to Vegas and be the Raiders quarterback, or maybe San Fran and be the Niners quarterback.
Could somebody buy it from you?
I mean, I think it would be financially irresponsible of me to not take an absurd amount of money.
Because like I feel like for me, like there's nothing that I could ever possess that wasn't for sale outside of a family member.
Yeah, and maybe they could be for sale too.
That's right. Depending on how much you love that family. But
yeah, I mean, again, I think it would be financially irresponsible for me to have a ball that's in storage.
But like theoretically, no, but I'm just bringing it up because it
warning you
theoretically
now.
could be worth 7 figures.
Yeah.
It's electric.
it's amazing. Kyle, thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. That was fun.
Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
And by the way, Andy, I know we're still recording. Like, if I ever get skinny, this is how I'm dressing right here.
Absolutely.
This is very
the,
sharp.
The hoodie, under the blazer, I always feel like I can't pull it off, but I got to try.
Is this like all you, or do you have a stylist?
My wife, she's here.
Okay.
She's my stylist. But it's actually, so when I retired, I got a lot of my football weight off, but I haven't gotten my suits tailored yet. So if I don't wear the hoodie under my sport coat, it doesn't fit.
So
it's a little big. I look like I'm wearing my dad's sport coat if I don't put a hoodie under.
I just thought you looked at Andrew Whitworth on TV and you're like, that's a
and maybe
man,
it's Big Whit's trick too, because he slimmed down from his playing days.
Yeah.
I'm doing it. Blazer, hoodie, done.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate
you being here. Thanks.
All right, I feel like we got to do a public service project here. I think I can help you out too.
This is a talent that I've known you've had for, like 3 years now, and I kind of marveled at it. I've seen you attempt it behind camera. I'm a little bit nervous to be sitting next to you while you do it, but also at the same time, I feel like it'd be a hell of a pickup line if you were, single, Andy, and you showed girls you could do this.
Oh,
but,
yeah. It is a great skill. So I speak, of course, of the wing twisty. I'm going to teach you guys how to eat wings. Now, I think there's a lot of children out there who feel like the drum is the best part of the wing. That's what I felt like when I was 18, 19. And so we joke all the time about Ryan Williams being 17, the Alabama receiver. On our friend Dan Wetzel's show that he does with Pat Forty and Ross Dellinger, the College Football Inquirer, so they had a segment, and someone told Dan, a source, told Dan that they saw Ryan Williams go into a wing place in Tuscaloosa and order all flats. And let me tell you, this increases my respect for Ryan Williams by 1,000, because I didn't realize that all flats was the way to go until I was in my 30s.
So when you go to a wing place, do you do all flats every time? Do you
Not every time, but when I'm in the mood for it, because the flat gives you the best bite in wings. Here, I got some wings back here. The folks at Central City Barbecue, which is right down the street from here.
I feel like if there was ever going to be a
wings.
picture of you to be preserved in history, it would just be you doing that with your arm and pulling a buffalo wing out.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
So the flat wing, people don't like the flat wing because they think it's too much work. They think you got to bite around this bone and then you got this other bone.
You're describing me when you say people.
Right.
Yeah.
And the drum, they say, is easy because it looks like a little drumstick and you just and go eat around. But there's so little meat on the drummy. The drummy is a very unsatisfying bite. This is a very satisfying bite. So here's what we do. We're going to go on the thin side of the flat. And your thumb and forefinger here. You pop it in your mouth. Swish. Oh, I didn't come clean. Don't worry. We'll work on that. We're going to get you right.
When you said twist, you didn't twist.
I did. Well, I didn't twist enough. That's why I left a little piece.
Okay, so
But-
when the flat's in your mouth, Yeah, I mean, maybe you should do it again.
We'll try again.
So I can like watch you twist this.
I'm gonna go from the
meat
other
in
side.
your mouth. Yeah.
Now you can push a little bit of it up here if you want to get a little cheat.
See, that's horrific. Like I don't know. Like
That
have you
is
seen a
amazing.
human being do that before?
And now I left a little tiny chunk there, but
Okay.
you want to try it?
Yeah, sure.
There we go. These wings are amazing.
Well, you did the hardest part that was like going to give me anxiety, which is trying to identify which is the fat or skinny side. So we're going to do it like
give
this
it
here.
give it a little push before you do it. Push just a little push. There you go. Not a lot.
Okay,
Get it going.
I don't think I did anything there.
Okay, there you go. Let's go. Let me see what you got. You took a bone. Do not swallow that bone, Ari. Listen, this will impress your friends at the Super Bowl party, but it'll just be a more satisfying eating experience. Just boom, right there.
I can't do it. I can't do it. Like
No, you
I knew
just
this. I knew this was going to happen.
You just have to practice. Here you go. Give me that.
That's disgusting. Mm-hmm. All right, so this is the. This is.
You can go from either side.
Oh,
I
okay.
would
Well, you made it
suggest-
seem like that was an integral
I
part
would
of this.
suggest go. Well, probably on this one because you got the exposed bones over here, so you could push the meat
Okay.
up from there. So I'm gonna get you started.
Did you sanitize, by the way?
Of course.
Okay, just wanted to make
Of
sure.
course. Look, what kind of operation do you think we're running here? This is a very professional deal. Here.
Okay.
I got
Let's
napkins
try to
too.
get around the mic here.
Come on, get it. Why do you keep leaving a bone?
This
You're
isn't
gonna
my
try- You're trying to
forte.
eat a bone here.
I'm
You're gonna
putting it in my
choke.
mouth and twisting it and doing the best that I can. I told you it was going to go this way, bud.
All right. Watch as follows.
I mean, you've also been doing this for like 30 years, so like
I did learn this in college.
Like you've been like you have
Shout
you have
out
muscle
to,
memory.
to the Hooters in underground Atlanta where I originally learned to do this. So you got your exposed bone here. I'm going to take a little bit. I pushed it up a little bit. Boom.
I'm not even seeing your wrist move when you
It's
do that.
clean. I think it's your grip strength is your problem.
But I don't even know where you're twisting it. It doesn't even look like your hand is moving when you're doing it.
So the person who taught it to me, a guy named Carlos Frias, he called it the wing twisty. There's actually probably not much of a twist here. It's more about boom, just grab it clean. So maybe
But are you using the edge of your teeth to like grab it and then pull out?
right? And I also think you are not gripping it hard enough. Like imagine you were
With my hand or my mouth?
with your hand, also with your mouth, but because it's two parts to this equation. But imagine you are Tom Cruise doing a stunt in a movie where you have to hang off a helicopter with one hand. That's how hard you need to be grasping the bones as you pull.
All right, I'm gonna give it one more whirl here, and if I can't do it, then I'm just gonna have to like live in a world where I can't do this.
This is.
But you know, the people listening at home, you can tell us if you were able to take anything. from this.
I bet that everybody at home can figure this out. So, yeah, I'm gonna get you started here. This one. So these two bones, thumb and forefinger.
You got me a small one. I love that about
tight
you.
as possible. Like again, you are hanging off the edge of a helicopter. If you drop these bones,
And you're telling me that
You
this
are
is
gonna die.
more convenient than just eating a drumstick like an adult or a child?
like a child,
Yeah. Okay.
it's less fun. You're never gonna get it.
Every time I get it.
Boom. Nothing.
Did you think that this was going to work for me?
I was hoping.
You've been around me enough to know. I mean, these are great wings, though.
These are tremendous. And I apologize for those listening in podcast form for me chewing into the mic, but this is incredible. And like we have 24 of these back here. I'd probably eat them all if we didn't have other things we had to do today.
Yeah, I feel like I can try these offset. I don't know if the segment is ruined because I didn't figure it out.
Oh no, it's
okay,
tremendous.
Yeah.
I feel like you should go practice, and then next year, our show before the Super Bowl, you come back and you show everybody how much you've learned.
I'll still do my best. Yeah. That sounds like a good, oral exercise. You know what I mean? And then I can do an oral exam.
Look at that clean bone right there.
Yeah. Well,
at that.
sorry for letting you guys down. Hopefully, Andy taught you something. But if you found out anything, he's a terrible teacher. So.
Oh, it's my fault.
Yeah, it is your fault.
You're a terrible student.
Yeah.
You're
I
lucky you
don't know
didn't
about
die. Remember our eating out of the trash conversation?
Yeah.
That was your bone.
Did you just eat my? Yeah, that's repulsive.
No, it's not. You would do the same thing.
I mean, I did have a hard time with your hand being all over it, even if you did sanitize.
My hands are very clean.
Yeah.
It's actually much easier. When you only have one bone, it's really easy.
I mean, this is the first segment that we've ever done that might. Well, actually, that's not true. But maybe the first segment we've ever done that would gross out the audience.
No.
We did have
The mayonnaise? When I ate the mayonnaise?
Yeah, that was pretty disgusting.
That was horrible.
Yeah, but I feel like I'm less prepared to eat wings.
I mean,
at
I
the Super Bowl
spat
party than I
mayonnaise
ever
into the
was.
microphone and the camera.
I was less prepared now going into the Super Bowl party that we're having on Sunday to eat wings. Than
Well,
I was
now you're
before
going to be all
this.
nervous about it. Now
I'm
you're
just
just going to
gonna-
come in
no.
with a complex.
I'm going to stick with the drums like I always do and get the drum meat.
Embarrassing. March to the beat of your own little tiny childlike drummer while the adults eat the flats.
It's just a further proof of what you already know about me, which is I'm a simple guy, man. Okay, like I'm an adult child, and I like what I like, and I like ketchup on chicken fingers. I like French fries. I like burgers, and that's who I am. So,
I'm going to clean the rest of these wings off.
Yeah, you go. I mean, you can eat them in 30 seconds with the way that you eat them. I just
Everybody
can't do
go
it.
enjoy the Super Bowl. We will talk to you Monday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We'd love to thank the folks at Xfinity for bringing us here, the folks at Athletes First. This house is incredible. This set is incredible. And I hope that you're watching this with your blazing fast Xfinity Internet and your 99% reliability, where we come in loud and clear, and you've seen this crystal clear. So you know how to eat wings, even if Ari can't. We'll talk to you Monday.